the kids aren't even like doing anything
No.
that bad. He just turns around, and just screams, "Pipe down in there!"
And that's when I made the joke that he's definitely the kind of father who would throw an ashtray at his child. Sinbad taking terrorism very lightly.
How about the fact that he gives them a bomb and then it actually ends up being a bomb?
Yeah,
and
it's
everything's cool after that.
Yeah, because it's a very Wile E. Coyote bomb.
Welcome into Film Tank, the weekly podcast that covers both new and classic cinema. On this episode of Film Tank, we talk about the mid-90s Christmas film, which is Jingle All the Way, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. If you would like to get in touch with Film Tank, you can always email us at filmtankshow@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Film Tank Show. And you can listen to all of our episodes on our website, filmtankshow.com, or on iTunes. And now, here are your hosts, Nick Cheney, Toussaint Egan, and myself, Alex Diekman. Hello there again, everybody, and welcome in to episode 178 of Film Tank. I am Alex Diekman, along with one of my usual co-hosts, which is Nick Cheney.
Hey!
Hi.
Hi.
Also with us today is not Toussaint Egan, as he's been absent here for quite a while, although we are going to be happy to have him back next week when we're talking about the... We'll be talking about the new Lars von Trier film next week, and
that's right.
he will be joining us for that, so
I
that'll
am
be pretty
looking
awesome.
forward to that.
I know.
I like people murdering people.
I know.
I'm kidding. I just like to murder people myself.
Are you trying to tell me something?
The house.
I'm sorry, where are we?
It's the house that Nick built.
Oh,
That is true.
That's good. Also, too, I
Don't
like
forget
that.
the siding.
I like that look you just gave me. That's the look that Rami Malek gives everybody.
Yeah.
That's just his face.
Can we
though.
talk about Rami Malek for a second here?
That was one of the worst speeches I've ever heard.
I actually didn't watch his speech.
Good for you.
Well, I mean, lo and behold, he wasn't trying because that's just how he talks all the time.
True. But
So-
I did see the moment, but I didn't have the volume on, of Bohemian winning Best Picture, where he's just standing off to the side in this weird kind of performative Godsmack silence, and it was, you know what? He's a weird dude.
He is, but I think also too, he's got a little Jennifer Lawrence in him, where he's
please don't say that.
where he's not as weird as people think he
I
is.
don't know.
He just likes people to think that.
I kind of think he is.
I don't know, man.
This is the same guy who's been, like, around. I'm trying to think of some random stuff that he's been in.
I know,
the
but
Pacific.
Yes, the
yeah,
Pacific.
He was on Night at the Museum.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
But he's got that persona of like he needs to play that. Like he's got that. He's
I'm
got
not saying he's not leaning into it, but
he's got a feel of somebody like Michael Richards who needs to play that.
okay.
He needs to play that Kramer character for the rest of his life now.
Yeah, I guess I could kind of see that.
I don't know. His speech was honestly just a fucking abomination. I thought it
Doesn't surprise
it
me.
was heartless,
Remember-
and it was one of the most disingenuine things I've ever heard.
Remember
in my
when we
life.
saw Bohemian Rhapsody and they played, which is becoming frequently more common, which is kind of disturbing, where the actors and directors will film a little short video to thank you for coming, to watch a movie in the theater, which on the one hand should really appeal to the inner film nerd in me. Like I genuinely
But see,
think...
it's good when the filmmakers actually care about the film,
Yes.
though. Yeah.
And but when we see a Rami Malek like stare at the camera unblinkingly and like just seem like they have no idea what they're actually doing there, it's just really creepy.
Yeah, Rami Malek is weird. He kind of reminds me a little, like his like mannerisms kind of reminds me a little bit of Kate McKinnon playing Lindsey Graham on SNL.
Yeah, no, I can totally
It's
see
kind of
that.
fucked up.
Yeah, and what's creepy is that Hugh Jackman, before the movie The Greatest Showman, when that was in theaters, he had a puff piece before that movie was in theaters. And I saw that movie twice in theaters. And all the time that he was talking during like the puff piece, thanking, whatever, I was like, you're so full of shit, but god damn it, you're charismatic. And like it didn't bother me one bit.
It's funny that you bring that up because my mom saw The Greatest Showman in theaters and she was like, oh my god, you won't believe it. Before the movie started, Hugh Jackman thanked everybody for coming to the movies. And I was like, that's because people are going to the movies less and less.
Absolutely. And I was one of those where I was like, I was sitting there going, this is fucking bullshit, but also, I'm into it.
In something like They Shall Not Grow Old, the Peter Jackson documentary about World War I, it totally fits in something like that, where he like wants to thank the audience for coming, but also at the same time thank them for giving time to his film about World War I, who no one cares about.
What's unfortunate about this recent trend is that the first time I remember seeing this was before X-Men Apocalypse. And if that's the kind of film that started this trend, which I'm not saying it is, but just in my head as far as chronological, we're in bad shape.
That's okay, because X-Men Apocalypse sort of was catharsis for people who were victims of the Holocaust, so it's fine, right?
Well, everything we build... yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, he was able to come and destroy everything, so it was fine.
Yeah, and if I want a Holocaust movie, I want it from Bryan Singer.
Well, he knows about making people miserable, so it's fine.
Sure does.
Also, too, boy howdy, all those people having to go up on stage. I actually did kind of appreciate that, even though that film should have never won for Best Picture. The fact that they had to go up and awkwardly try to not mention the director was fantastic.
Oh, yeah, for Bohemian.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
Well, two things about that. One, Bryan Singer's hilarious Instagram post where he thanks the Academy. And it's like, buddy, no.
Nope.
Like, here's the thing. If you're a Quentin Tarantino and you got fired from your job, and I went and saw a Quentin Tarantino movie that was finished by somebody else, I would be able to tell if it was not finished, but if it had Quentin Tarantino's stamp on it.
Sure.
I'm sorry, but Bryan Singer, you don't do anything other than direct. You don't actually have a singular vision. So the idea, but the idea that you are somehow like responsible for the final product. It's like, no, even if you did everything and then the other guy just came in and signed the contract, you didn't do anything unique.
Also, too, you tried to pretty much harpoon your own project, so that's kind of weird. Although Bryan Singer, even with all the stuff that's come up about him and his likely demise in Hollywood, in all actuality, everything in the middle of when he left X-Men was shit. And then when he came back, it started to be good again.
I mean, for X-Men movies, I mean, I like those movies, so I'm not going to necessarily say that you're wrong at all. Yeah. But are they good enough movies to warrant what he's...
Oh, no.
No. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying at least...
But yeah, no.
In your
it's
Quentin
unfortunate.
Tarantino example,
no.
At least he's somebody who seems to have some sort of... At least at some point had...
He hasn't done anything unique since The Usual Suspects, in my opinion.
Oh, that's true.
I want to say, before we get into the meat of this episode, really quick, I want to fight you, Alex.
Ooh.
Yes. Because you have some strong words and opinions about Andy Samberg, and I would assume about him and Sandra Oh hosting the Golden Globes.
Yep.
Let me just say this.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much won't fight you on that. But
okay,
I'll say two things in defense of the hosting gigs by both of them as a unit, so to speak, which is I will go out on a limb and say I was kind of found it refreshing that it was slightly a positive and just kind of fun affair instead of trying to drag it down at every turn. Like there was barely any Trump jokes, if any. Like I thought that was kind of nice or whatever. But B, just the big thing. Holy shit, no matter what you thought about any other joke of the night, but his, in my opinion, hilarious but also disturbing and accurate takedown of the FBI's treatment of the Black Panther activist was actually kind of brilliant, because that's a thing that white people are not usually caught saying. And for him to sneak that into his dumb shtick, I actually thought that was, like, pretty great.
Yeah, the hosting thing is weird because everybody wants to make it their own, but at the same time, everybody also doesn't want to be James Franco.
Okay, so that was my question, because that's what they reminded me of most, because that was the last time we had, like, the double host and people who were, I think, were kind of brought in at not the last second, but, you know, whatever. Would you rather watch another awards ceremony hosted by James Franco and Anne Hathaway, or Andy Samberg and Sandra Oh?
Probably Andy Samberg and Sandra Oh.
Okay.
Only because I feel like James Franco was trying to destroy the awards ceremony that he was hosting for.
I agree.
Which, okay.
Yeah.
But he is kind of a deplorable person, I think, when it comes to doing that kind of stuff. So why are we, if you don't want to be part of this, then why did you sign up for this? So
yeah.
Although I will say, I mean, he's just doing a gig, so whatever, but I think Andy Samberg showing up as Brooklyn Nine-Nine's about to premiere on that very station is a little weird. But it makes sense. It's not weird.
Yes.
It's just funny how it all just goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
I still think, and I will go down swinging on this, that he is one of the least funny people I've ever seen in my life. And I know he's got his own shtick, and I know a lot of people really do like it, including you.
Yeah.
But legitimately, I can like watch somebody like Will Arnett and find his shtick funny, or Will Forte and find humor in that. And every time I see Andy Samberg, I want to turn the television off.
And here's what I'll say to that, which is that I, like you said, love Andy Samberg. Not because he's great, but because he's unfortunately right up my alley. And but separate from that, I thought Sandra Oh was kind of wonderful. Like, just as far as, like, she seemed very genuine about a lot of things. And then, of course, when she won her award. But I actually thought her speech before she won her award about representation was, like, pretty great. And because they kept weaving Andy Samberg's dumb white male cluelessness into her whatever, I thought he was the perfect sidekick to her, basically. But
so I will say the one genuinely great moment from the Golden Globes was Glenn Close's speech, which I thought was fantastic.
I thought that was really good,
was
too.
it for the wife?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I actually saw the speech.
Which is okay.
Yes.
And I mean, there wasn't anything...
I clocked out after an hour and a half, I think.
Good for you.
This year.
Good for you. There wasn't anything about it that was, like, overly amazing. Like, it was all stuff that was relevant and works here. But her delivery was fantastic. And I really do think there is something about that. We've gone through the Me Too movement. We've gone through Oscar So White.
Yep.
And yet the older community has had no one caring about it yet. Yeah. And I find it very interesting that you haven't...
Somebody else did that, though.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett kind of weaved that into her speech, didn't she? Kind of, not the older community, but she said that she waxed nostalgia for the era in which shows were allowed to breathe on network TV. And I kind of actually disagree with her in the sense that I love Carol Burnett and I love her show, and no one loves classic television, I think, on this podcast more than I do.
No.
So, just in general. However, I think that was kind of a get-off-my-lawn moment, because in this day and age of streaming, whatever, we've gotten some very interesting shows that never would have actually been allowed to exist. So I'm with her in the sense that, you know, certainly we're in a different climate, but it's not so much that her show couldn't exist now, it's just that her show is of her time. Yeah. And if you want that show, then watch her show. Like, that's like my biggest thing, because most people just won't watch shows from before 20 years ago.
But the great thing about Glenn Close's speech is that, A, it felt actual, genuine, and heartfelt, unlike Rumi Malek. But also, she wasn't, like, going out of her way to say anything about age discrimination or anything like that. It felt like it just kind of flowed through it. And she was talking a lot about females and living their dreams and actually being people, and not just whatever. But it just, a lot of things just worked well together in her speech. And the other thing is it's Glenn Close doing it, who actually I think is a much more talented version of somebody like Meryl Streep.
I agree with you.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
She was in the 4th season of The Shield, and she's fantastic in that.
But it is nice when she gets some recognition and is actually able to give like an actual speech for something.
Yes, I'd agree.
So I didn't know that Bryan Singer had an Instagram, so I had to find
Yeah,
it to
yes,
see
he does.
to see exactly what the fuck was on there.
Yep.
And it's a lot of self-flagellating about the fact that he was directing Bohemian Rhapsody, and same thing with like everything else he's pretty much done. He did a memorial post when Carrie Fisher died, and one of the comments is somebody saying, if she knew the truth about you, she would fucking fuck you up. This is why I appreciate the internet.
Did he ever work with her?
No, but it says that one time she like gave him a tour or something, and then there's like a candid photo of them.
Ooh.
I like too how Star Wars, now that we're mentioning Carrie Fisher, as soon as she died, said she's not going to be in that 9th movie, and basically now she's going to be like the main character of it, which I think is really interesting. I haven't read anything about the new movie. They said she's not going to be in it at all.
They pretty much said that The Last Jedi was going to be her...
Correct.
That's
not swan song, because obviously it was unplanned.
They said she's not going to be in it at all, period, was the first stamp of this is the definitive decision. It's like Heath Ledger. We're not commenting on it. She's gone. That's it. Then... well, we have some old footage from the last 2 films, and we're going to figure out a way to weave that in, which immediately made me feel like Tony's mother from The Sopranos, and I was horrified for a second. And then... I was going to say, and then we've reached the 3rd level now, where she's got family members coming out saying, they have our blessing, but she's going to be a major player in this film. And I was like, fuck.
See, that's bad, because I'm not even, like, 100% against that idea, but I don't trust J.J. Abrams to make a good enough movie to also be able to support something like that. Like,
there's so much going on already.
Yeah, like you have to just wrap it up anyway. So why not? Like, as much as it would suck, you could just not have her in it and still have a decent movie. So anyway,
there's also this weird obsession in Hollywood, which I found weird. When people actually die in real life, their characters cannot cease to exist. They have to just have gone on to some special place. I mean, we saw probably the biggest example in the Fast and the Furious series, where literally he had to drive off into the sunset.
And that was unfortunate, because that was like the best thing you could possibly do, because it was amazing.
Right.
But
it was great. But like, they will go out of their way to not kill characters, even though humans have died, which is so weird to me.
No, like, can we just give it up really quick, though, to the Fast and the Furious for being such a ridiculous franchise that they're the only big blockbuster franchise that have actually handled a actor's death well, because they didn't
do an Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus
thing. Like it was like they single-handedly and simultaneously dedicated the film to them in spiritual and whatever ways, but also they didn't actually make the film about them, and it was just anyway.
And also too, all of the scenes where like his brothers came in felt way more genuine than Henry Cavill's mustache in the Justice League movie.
Or Bruce Willis as a young, or Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a young Bruce Willis in Looper.
Or early on when we see his progression into Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis has this terrible toupee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
We're getting way off
What
topic
movie are we
here.
talking about tonight?
Yeah. So, we're not talking about the Golden Globes or Star Wars or Looper.
We should.
Can I butt in? I don't
yes, please do.
I don't think you introduced
This is all we
me.
do. This is all we do on this podcast.
Honestly, the movie we're talking about is not good, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh,
so please.
Come on. There's plenty of fun to be had with this film.
I will actually... Well, continue.
I was just going to say, Alex didn't introduce me yet.
I was actually going to say that, too.
True. See, I thought about... I thought I did, so I kind of just... And in all honesty, you have been on this podcast.
Yeah, but you introduced me, and I've been on every episode.
That is very much true. Thank you for undressing me.
So, Anna, you should feel like shit.
Yes. So, anyways...
I feel like shit.
Oh. Oh. Well, I'm glad I was able to make you feel that emotion. Anyways, Anna Bodazadu is joining us. She's given her 2 cents on certain things, and she now officially can be on the episode. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Anytime.
We won't always introduce you, but you're always welcome.
Thank you.
Did you have a thought on something else, or did you just want to have your name brought up?
I just wanted to make sure you introduced me.
That's fair.
I forgot about me.
No, that's.
I just mostly because your introduction usually isn't interrupted for that long.
No, that was a long one.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was. It's gonna be. I just feel like now we can cut into Curb Your Enthusiasm song as they can begin the episode with only 4 minutes left, and it's like, wait a minute.
Yep, we're done.
Yeah, pretty much. So now that Anna is here, which is great, and also myself and Nick are here again. No Toussaint, he's off, probably seeing Venom right now.
Venom. That's my Eminem impression.
Oh, good.
Man, that song wasn't good.
Nope.
Who wants to make a wager that he will make a song for the sequel?
Oh, I'm sure he will.
I'm sure he will.
I like to.
That's all we got.
I like that the whoever the writer was for that film just got announced that they are coming back.
Well, that was Ruben Fleischer, wasn't it? Or did he only direct it?
No, he was the director.
I thought he wrote it.
Yeah. Anyways, it was announced, and then there was a story floating around the other day about how, there's going to be a sequel. I'm like, the fuck? First of all, it was one of the most successful films of the year.
Right.
And it had the hardest there's going to be a sequel scene at the end.
That tease is
in a while.
Literally. Yeah, no, you're right. That's weird.
So I fucking hate social
Hollywood.
media. When it comes to movies and rumors, social media is the fucking worst.
That's true.
I agree.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I've seen so many articles in the past week or two about what Star Wars Episode 9's title will be, to the point where...
Well, Mark Hamill said the title is going to be Thank You Next, because he got harassed by a fan, which was pretty good.
Yeah. But I've heard that the title... I think there's a rumor right now, and this is fucking stupid, so I don't care, but I'm going to say it anyway. The rumor is that apparently the title of Episode 9 is something that was said in The Phantom Menace, or one of the 3 films in that original trilogy, or not original, but prequel trilogy.
It's just gonna be Episode 9 midichlorians.
But the idea that that would get Star Wars fans' dicks wet.
No, man, that would do it.
And that's what I don't understand, because clearly that means that I will never love Star. I actually do. I'm kind of coming around as far as I like Star Wars. I definitely like the original trilogy and whatever. But I hear things like that, and I hear how fucking crazy people get about that kind of a tease, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm never going to be on that board, because even Marvel shit I try to figure out or something, because I'm just like,
It's funny, because I will say this about Endgame.
Yeah.
If you were paying attention during the last film, it seems obvious now that that's the title of this film, and yet I was just trying to think about what it was going to be, and I was like, oh man, they've done a good job with this, and it comes out and I was like, oh, of course.
I was just hoping it would be called Part 2.
Yeah,
but that's just me.
Yeah.
So.
The thing about Endgame is that that's a decent title. Whatever, we can move on. But yet, there have been articles saying that something like Joe or the Russo brothers, I should say, both of them, quote unquote, knew the title before they made the first film. I'm like, that's not news. That's of course they did.
It just means they planned.
Why would they have written an entire film with that was clearly a duology without knowing what the second film would be in concept?
Well, they knew what it was going to be, but they said that they couldn't release it because it would say too much about the first film.
But it doesn't.
I know.
You could literally not show a single trailer, moment, whatever, from Infinity War, and if you said Endgame was the second movie's title...
You said Endgame was going to be the film where all the characters from the first part of it are going to be gone, you'd be like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Or it'd be the same thing as calling it, the final chapter, or... Avengers: The Last. I mean, it's just anyway.
Yeah.
The idea that we are so caught up in fucking film titles is really starting to grate on me.
I'm so caught up in my idea for the end of the Avengers movie, and I don't want to get into predictions because that is the nerdiest shit you can ever do. But if
we'll probably get there in Captain Marvel,
probably.
So excited.
If Tony Stark kills Thanos by having the missiles that he used to build shoot into him and he explodes, it'll be the coolest shit ever. So just putting that out there.
We shall see.
The Jericho missile comes in and just like shoots into a million pieces and then comes in all around and just Thanos just blows up into a big purple blob. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great. Speaking of Captain Marvel, I bought tickets for it already, by the way. So that happened.
You watch what?
I bought tickets for Captain Marvel already.
Did you?
Believe it or not.
For who?
For me.
Cool.
Emily.
Cool.
You.
Really?
Yes.
And where'd you buy them? I mean, like what theater?
Charlestown.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was actually going to text you and be like, hey, should we get tickets for this?
Yeah.
So,
and one other person who will be lucky enough to join us. That will
right.
probably not be Toussaint, because I believe he has a class on Thursday.
Yeah. But cool.
Can't wait to hear how...
So we have... Although Tim wouldn't be able to go, because they only got 4. So.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's a possibility.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You may want to go, because fuck Tim.
That's not why.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not why.
Sure.
It's a possibility, but I might... you have a point. Probably going to reserve it to watch it
Which
with
is
him.
totally fine. I'm sure we will find somebody who's interested.
It's early March, right?
It is.
Okay.
It is
March
like
8th.
March 8th.
Yes.
I will say, and this is the last thing we can talk about before we talk about the actual film.
We're not talking
that'll
about
actually
that.
be shorter than the actual.
It says a lot about this movie.
I am actually super pumped for Captain Marvel.
Me too.
I don't know if I've been as excited for a film in a while.
I will say...
No,
Yes.
you go.
No, you go first.
Okay, so they had like a feature on Captain Marvel the other night.
I heard about that, but I
Right.
didn't watch it.
Because like they were like basically now that the Golden Globes have happened, it's now like perfect time to promote Captain Marvel. So Brie Larson thought she was gonna do her own stunts, and she came on set like with the idea like that she would have to do that, so she trained for months, and then they were like, no, you don't have to do that, and she was like, okay, well, I did all this work anyway, so can I do some of them? And they were like, yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
I thought that was really awesome. She seems like a pretty
At first, that was
wholesome
like a
person.
sad story. But then when you said that she actually got to do some of them, then I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
She's probably bummed because she probably has like a 13-film contract with them right now,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
she's fucked.
Yeah.
Although she's probably very rich too.
Yeah.
So
I will
there's
say, as someone who's not the biggest Marvel fan, that Captain Marvel was definitely the first film in quite some time that I'm actually looking forward to, besides Guardians Volume 2. But that was a sequel, so that was not a new property in the
the
MCU.
idea that they have something that predates what the entirety of the MCU is
That seems
pretty wonderful.
I'm excited for that too.
But
Yeah, for sure.
the other thing I will say is that if the trailers are misleading, and this is not a Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson buddy cop movie.
Oh, I think it's going to be.
And that's all But if they're really cherry picking certain scenes to make it seem like that, I will be kind of disappointed.
I'll agree, but I actually don't think it's going to be like that. So I think that's going
I
to
hope
be
so.
the meat and potatoes of the film.
I would hope so.
Because my guess is from the structure, and this is super nerdy,
I mean, it would make sense based
It
on
would.
what they've teased.
but it seems like this film's going to follow a very similar structure to something like The Winter Soldier did, where the film pretty much starts and ends with the same two people going through the entirety of a story.
Yeah.
But it's great because you're getting two origin stories here. You're also getting, in a way, Samuel L. Jackson, and also, too, this seems like the definitive CGI de-aging, we're here, where it can make somebody actually, for an entire film, look younger.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll
don't
see how that goes for sure.
It's looked good in the trailer, I will say. It is
In the
not
trailer,
been
it does.
awkward Robert Downey Jr.
No.
So
Which I still hate.
I know you do, and I understand. But I am super pumped. I think Brie Larson's great. I think she's wonderfully casted, and the fact that she has a 9 Inch Nails shirt on at one point during one of the trailers is just phenomenal.
I saw that too. I thought that was pretty sweet.
Mhm. So we will see how it goes. So the actual film we are discussing, apparently,
Good
in this
episode.
Yeah, good job, guys.
I gotta go.
Is the 1996 family comedy, which is Jingle All the Way, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sinbad, and then also Rita Wilson, Phil Hartman, Martin Mull, Jim Belushi, And also a wonderful child performance by Jake Lloyd before he went on to super fame in The Phantom Menace.
Jake Lloyd Holbrook.
Second Phantom Menace reference on this episode.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Damn it. So, Jingle All the Way surrounds a father as he vows to get his son a Turbo Man action figure for Christmas. However, every store is sold out of them, and he must travel all over town and compete with everybody else. Not just certain people, everybody else, in order to find one.
Everybody. Gary Oldman.
Everyone!
Yep.
So, I think I'll start off as I was the one who was championing us doing an episode.
That is correct.
On this film.
Not me, surprisingly.
Yeah, this seems like it would be the kind of Christmas film that you would push on people.
I enjoy, but continue.
Anywho, I watched this a lot when I was growing up, as I was, around 9 when this came out. So this kind of hit right in that age of like superhero-ish type things. It was probably right after I was getting out of Power Rangers, which this film is clearly riffing off of like big time. And yet, when I was a kid, I found this movie to be very entertaining, and also it all felt very much just like what you would hope would happen if you were a little kid and you liked a superhero, and then it ended up being your dad and something like that. So then I got older, and now I'm, in my early 30s. And what I love so much about this film is this is a incredible time capsule for the late 90s, as this film is doing so many things, whether it be terrible parenting, which was a hallmark of the late 90s family films, shopping in shopping malls, which is, not that it's not existent, but it is a much different climate now. Not having cell phones or other devices to contact people, and
lackadaisical terrorist, shall we say, procedures.
Right.
And I will say the other thing is this film hits all of the right notes for me for the corny, bad late 90s family film.
Yeah.
As there is so many things here that are happening that are honestly disgraceful, but yet at the time in the 90s, people were like, oh, that's fun. He just fucking killed a deer. It's all good. And oh no, honestly, the deer's still alive, so he's going to try to poison it to death now with alcohol.
Here's the thing, though. Killing a deer is not as disturbing as what happens. Punching a deer in the face and then supplying it with alcohol is...
Thinking that's somehow nourishing it.
is far more disturbing than just, like, putting a deer out of his misery.
Something I will say, though, and I'll pass it on then as I have more thoughts here, but overall, I do quite enjoy this film. I think it is very fun to watch 23 years later, because this is a film that has not necessarily aged well, but I think that's okay, because I think this shows its age, and it's pretty wonderful for doing so. There are creepy pedophilia undertones throughout this entire film, and it is fucked up. And I don't know if it was like completely intentional early then, and I know that they comment on it, that he's a pervert when he's like chasing after a child.
That they commented on it, because it still seems weirdly before the era of like rampant Catholic pedophilia, so to speak. And I say that because that was our most flagship, I don't know, news story of it. Mm-hmm. But no, because I made a joke like, and they're not even going to comment on it, and then of course they do. Yeah. Not quite in the way that they probably would today.
No.
But
I don't think any of those kind of things would happen in films these days, especially Christmas films that are trying to be family oriented.
Christmas, yes, that is a big '90s thing. I mean, you look at the '90s, and you have is Home Alone in the '90s?
Yeah,
I mean, like
it's early.
Even
90s.
If it was '80s, it would be a '90s film.
I think the first one actually is 1990.
Okay,
but I'm not positive.
But you have Home Alone, The Santa Claus, and Jingle All the Way.
Nice addition, Anna.
let alone you have Home Alone, Jingle All the Way, The Santa Claus, let alone anything else I'm forgetting. Mm-hmm. But that seemed like a very ripe period of like sending things to the box office in a seasonal manner that even now we don't quite do. Like we have box office seasons, not calendar seasons.
But you also don't have, and Home Alone is much different than this, but you don't have this idea of the Christmas gift that is out of your grasp.
Yeah, no, that would be a person just on their phone trying to submit their Amazon cart.
And they're just furious because this is not a Prime eligible seller and this is bullshit.
And like even though Black Friday is a huge thing even today, it still doesn't really compete with like what I remember my parents having to go through to get me like the last thing I remember, like as far as like the oldest I ever was and asked for something that was hard to get was the Nintendo Wii.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I feel like that was like the last big thing that was, small quantity, whatever. And I heard the story after Christmas because I ended up getting one because my parents are angels. I heard the story that like my father had to actually wait in line at midnight, even Black Friday, but whatever night that they were going to get them or something. Wait until he got his ticket, and my mom was in the car drinking hot cocoa. And
funny story about actually like going out and like physically going to multiple places to try to find something,
and that was like the fourth time that they had tried to get one. By the way, but
which is a struggle that my guess is, even though people do physically go and shop now for things and for special deals and whatever that, it is completely different now in the age we live in. However, there is a wonderful little moment in my grandfather had just acquired a video camera for the very first time on a Christmas, and this is when I was like 4 years old or something like that.
And he videotaped your karate belt ceremony?
No. So he had videotaped, and if my grandfather passed away years ago, but if anyone ever met him, he liked to rub people's face in it about certain things that he'd done. So he's like, before people are like coming in to do like opening of gifts and everything, he's doing this like bizarre establishing shot of all the surroundings as he's acquired a camera for the very first time and doesn't know what he's doing.
That's pretty great.
And he's giving a commentary while he's doing it, which also is fantastic on this particular video because he doesn't understand, I don't think, that you don't have to move the camera every time you move your head, so it just keeps moving up and down when he keeps looking around, and it's fantastic. Anyways, so he gives commentary on some of these gifts that are in the packages, and then he zooms in on the individual packages wrapped in. But the fact that he's like, oh, well, for when you watch this, your grandma went to 14 stores to find this. And the one for my brother is a video cassette of the second Naked Gun film, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
That somebody had to go to 14 stores to find that.
Yep. Oh, man.
Anyways, this struggle will never be known by this generation.
No.
So,
past, like... Sorry, I was going to say, the past 3 to 4 Christmases where I've bought stuff for myself, but like were quote-unquote ticket items, like I bought online.
Sure.
I just went to Target.com or whatever and was like...
Somebody will actually physically deliver it to your house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They'll even gift wrap it for you if you want.
It's just unfortunate, but as much as I don't want to go back to that, there is something weirdly kind of sweet about the idea that I didn't just get a Nintendo Wii, I got my parents debasing themselves for capitalism and deciding that for whatever reason they liked me enough to do that shit.
The other thing about it too is it seems like there was so many specialty stores back then, which is weird because the further we've gotten on, the more like consolidated it's gotten, even though now everyone just buys everything on the internet for the most part when it comes to holiday shopping. But the idea that people had to go to like 14 different stores to get 4 gifts, it's like, wait a minute, these numbers aren't adding up.
Yeah, you have to go to BB Games, and then you have to go to Toys R Us, and then which...
Fuck's BB Games?
You mean EB Games?
Was it EB? Yeah,
it was EB Games.
True.
I thought you were going for I were going for KB Toys there, but that's all right.
I was literally thinking of both of those at the same time.
Okay, they just morphed together.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
KB Toys is where I bought my Nintendo 64.
Oh.
EB Games is what I was thinking of when I was thinking of like a... Which, oh man, the this is random, but the mall, the Charlestown Mall, which is my local mall, used to have a GameStop, but it was not called GameStop. It was called Babbage's. And I was just reminded of that.
I remember that.
Yeah, I was just reminded that the other day where I was like, oh my God, that was a real store title.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
We're going to come full circle because I'm going to have the third Phantom Menace mentioned on this very episode. I know. The last time
I remember... the third Phantom Menace? What does that mean?
The third mention.
I've mentioned it for the third time, or somebody's mentioned it for the third
I'm
time.
Like, they made 3 of those fuckers?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Phantom Menace Volume 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Come on, man. Jar Jar somehow stuck around for all 3 of those movies, so, you know.
Yes, massa.
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened now. He would have been killed off in the second one early on.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So anyways, this is how nerdy I was and still am.
Yes.
But the last time I remember going to KB Toys is when I was collecting Star Wars action figures.
Hey.
And I was having
they're called dolls.
Sure thing,
In this movie, they are, for the most part.
Well, yeah. It's kind of mentioned back and forth about it. But anyways, I have an extensive Star Wars collection of toys, as I played with all of the ones from the original films, and I had the Millennium Falcon and all those characters, so I wanted to get the ones from the new film. And Darth Maul was very difficult to find.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yep. So anyways, I went to a KB Toys, and this is very interesting when you're a kid and you don't understand how the world works.
Yeah.
And I asked the manager, whoever, I'm like, do you have Darth Maul? He's like, well, we may have one in the back. I'll go look for you. And he goes, and he actually did have one in the back, and he brought it, and I was like the most excited thing. And this guy probably just wanted to get the fuck out of there and go drink somewhere because he works at KB Toys, and he had to go look through their fucking stock box they probably just got delivered that day and see if they had a fucking Darth Maul action figure. So I was really excited, and I still got that shit. So there you go.
Really quickly, and then we're going to pass it to Anna on on her thoughts on this film.
Okay.
But I want to talk really quick, a random story about KB Toys where I also didn't know how the world works. So I went into a KB Toys when I was 9, I think, and when the Nintendo 60, and I just mentioned it earlier, that's where I bought a Nintendo 64, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the very first thing I ever saved up money to buy on my own, and that was a big deal. I think it was like $100 or something like that, so I don't even know how the fuck I did that at 9 years old, but whatever. But here's the thing, and as someone who had a video game system before, because I had the Super Nintendo, I knew how this worked, but when you're blinded by wanting something, you just don't think about anything other than, your goal or whatever. So I remember going into the KB Toys and going to the shelf where there was a Nintendo 64, and I was like, I'll take that. And my parents probably was the one who, picked it up, whatever. And then it, fucking hit me that I had enough money for a system and not for a game. As a child, that was I was in my head because I hadn't done anything yet. It's not like I said put it back or whatever, but I was super embarrassed because I was I did all of this and I was so proud of myself because I'm here and I'm ready to buy the whatever, and yet I'm not actually going to be able to use this thing or whatever. And of course, because my parents, are parents and their whatever, that was their plan all along, was to buy me a game. But for a good 5 minutes I thought I was doing a walk of shame to the counter where I was going to be buying something that I had no use for whatsoever because it wasn't until then that my parents were like, well, wait, you have to pick out a game, and I was like, oh, thank fucking God, because this was really awkward.
This is really random, but didn't Nintendo 64 come with the Super Mario game?
No.
Really?
That was a launch game. At least not the...
Oh, man.
Nintendo is famous for doing bundles, but the thing I was buying was just the system.
I felt like the basic system, all of them came with the first Mario game. For that.
Only because I have a vivid memory of not... And that was one of the first games I bought. In fact, I picked that, and my brother, because even though it was my system, he got to pick a game, of course.
There was a bullshit early level in that Mario game for Nintendo 64 where you have to throw Bowser around that weird turntable
thing. Yeah, that's a very...
the
Stop Top Land or whatever.
Yeah, but that's like the very opening level,
great.
And you have to whip him around, and it looked so cool then. God, that's so dumb.
Was great.
I'm sorry.
No, but I chose that, and my brother chose the NWO versus WWF. I want to say, or WWE.
It would be WCW versus NWO.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yep.
So anyway, that's my random KB Toys.
Which
story.
I'm sure one of the characters in that, I'm sure, was the Giant, who is played by the guy who's in Jingle All the Way.
That's actually what I was going to ask you while we were watching it. Was he a professional wrestler?
He's more well known for his time with the WWE, where he's been known as the Big Show.
Okay.
But he was known as the Giant, and they made him wear this awkward, like, Tarzan outfit, but he's the 7'3" guy who weighs 450 pounds, and he's wearing this weird, like, loincloth kind of thing. It doesn't work out.
When it comes to professional wrestlers in Christmas movies, all I can think about is Goldberg in
that opening scene is wonderful.
Santa's Sleigh.
Is that opening scene on YouTube? Do you know?
Probably.
We should show it.
Everybody should watch it.
We should show it to Anna.
If not,
I don't think she'll be prepared for what that is.
It's the best scene in ever.
All right.
No,
anyway.
you have no context for it, right?
No, I don't.
And he hasn't told you anything about it?
I don't think
We're done recording this episode.
We're gonna watch that,
even though it might be daylight for tomorrow by the time we're there.
Fine.
Now, it is. Even though I had no interest in watching the movie, and God bless his heart, Nick didn't make me sit through it.
I didn't.
But at the same time, this opening scene is really something.
I did force you to watch that, though.
And that's fine. And we may... I'm fine forcing other people to watch it because I think it is kind of fucked up.
It is.
And it's wonderful. Okay, Anna.
Anna, what did you think of Jingle All the Way?
Okay, what did I think of Jingle All the Way?
This was your first time watching it.
That's true. So the first time I've even heard of this movie is when my hairdresser brought it up a couple months ago because she said it's one of her favorite holiday films. And I was like, what's that? And she was like, oh my gosh, you've never seen it? You totally should. And then here I am. I watched it for the first time tonight with you guys. Yay. And I really enjoyed it.
Yay!
I thought this was a really good, Christmas movie. I liked the fact that Arnold was totally not a good actor for this character, but
he works as a dorky dad.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I mean, you could tell he was struggling with like a lot of it. But that's
still happening.
Right, exactly. So, but I mean, I liked pretty much every element that this movie had to offer. There was like the side plot with the main character's wife and the neighbor, who Phil Hartman was lovely, and
so great.
May he rest in peace. I thought Jake Lloyd was adorable, but I've always thought he was adorable, so that wasn't really a surprise to me.
I'm a person, and my name is Anakin.
Exactly.
This is pod racing.
He actually seemed like he may have ended up being a decent actor if he would have just kept on the path, but unfortunately he got dragged into that George Lucas dribble bullshit. So.
Well, and then he quit and just, does whatever now.
Unfortunately for him, he did that and then went into middle school, which was like a nightmare scenario.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I mean, that would be for anybody.
Yeah.
But yes, I did really like this movie. I like how it pretty much all came together at the very end, and we get all of this setup of, Jake Lloyd wanting Turbo Man, and at the end, it turns out his dad was Turbo Man the whole time. So
there's a lot about that final scene that you could actually go through and like tease out, which is wonderful. Even though the final scene is kind of silly, at the same time, there is a lot happening there.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought Sinbad was possibly at the peak of his career at this point. I mean, who could have known? But yeah, he was definitely like, exactly. So that was definitely like him doing his own thing, and interesting foil to Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I did really like this a lot, and it did make me laugh, mostly because Alex could not stop laughing at certain points, and that just made me laugh. So
he was eating it up.
Yeah,
I was,
but it
still
was.
Am.
I was.
Chicken fingers, mama.
I was pleasantly surprised with this movie, and I had no idea what to expect from it. So,
nice.
Yeah, I did really like it.
Awesome.
Oh, boy. I'm with Alex in the sense that I watched this when it first came out, and I was definitely, I guess, younger, but obviously young enough to just fall in love with this at that time. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting about this movie is that I have memories of my grandpa who died in the year 2000, so I only knew him for like less than a decade.
In the year 2000. I'm sorry, I tried so hard to not do that.
That's quite
Fuck
right.
you, Conan.
Still a good joke.
It is.
Still a good joke.
My grandpa would appreciate that.
Yes.
Actually or not?
No, actually, yeah.
No.
He was a very funny guy, and he loved me because I was...
Funny how?
like a clown. But no, he loved movies, and he loved me, and he always used to tell my parents he was going to, like, I people are going to take this the wrong way because, it's just one of those things where whatever, but like he was going to kidnap me and take me to Hollywood, whatever, because I was such a energetic kid. And
did you have a ball with a number on it
no,
that you could get a Turbo Man?
I'm saying he was adorably invested in the fact that he thought I was funny when I was a young kid. And you know what? I was.
You still are.
I am. And here's what's, yeah?
That's like the inverse of when Michonne says on The Walking Dead, I used to have a baby and he thought I was very funny.
Yeah, pretty much. And when I was young, what's funny is that I look back and my grandpa loved movies, and I also can say that he had terrible taste in movies. There are 2 movies that I remember him loving to the point where when I was a young age, so it makes sense, he had to take me to the theater to watch them. The first one, or I don't know chronologically, but obviously the second one is the movie we're talking about. The first one, though, is...
Ernest Goes to Camp.
No. Is Flubber.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Robin Williams.
As a kid, I loved Flubber.
Yes, and Flubber was something he was, freaking out about taking me to. I'm not saying that,
Now, did he love the original? Because I actually owned the original. I actually loved the original.
I've never seen the original.
I owned it on VHS when I was a kid. I thought the original was actually fantastic.
And I'm sure it is. I think it was one of those things where he was a grandpa. So,
sure.
he saw a Robin Williams vehicle coming out for, children or whatever. So, it was that, and then it was Jingle All the Way. He took me, my grandma, and we barely went to the movies, with just my grandparents, but to go see Jingle All the Way.
Did your brother go?
Yeah, I believe so.
This seems like the kind of movie he would enjoy.
Yeah. And so we all watched. So I remember that this was a formative part of my childhood holiday memories. And I watched it all the time. After I saw it, I got it on VHS, all that good stuff. I haven't seen it now in quite, maybe a decade or so.
Sure.
It's been a while, and then we watched it tonight. And I gotta say, this movie sucks. And I quite enjoy it. And not because, it's so bad it's good. It's just, it's so wrapped up in the moment it came out that it's hard to judge it 20-something years later.
Oh, no. This film is somebody who decided to get a large fountain in their wedding cake. And they have to look back at the photos and be like, that was a decision.
I was going to say, it's a choice. And, it's not my wedding. Maybe I wouldn't do things this way. But I'm not going to tell someone else how to start their marriage.
And you enjoyed being at the wedding the whole time.
Exactly.
I'm not going to tell somebody they should not wear pirate sleeves on their wedding dress, but boy, howdy, did they do it.
Did they? But I was pleasantly surprised in rewatching it because I found parts that I thought were atrocious and hilarious, to laugh at as an adult. And yet, at the end of the day, it's extremely acceptable holiday family fare. I don't know why someone would get that upset about something like this existing, because unfortunately, even if it's bad at points, they don't make these movies anymore.
No.
And that's what's kind of really helping it, so to speak. But man, there's a lot of hilariously good stuff in here, from Arnold punching a reindeer in the fucking face to Sinbad taking terrorism very lightly.
How about the fact that he gives them a bomb and then it actually ends up being a bomb?
Yeah, and it's
everything's cool after that.
Yeah, because it's a very Wile E. Coyote bomb, because it doesn't really do anything. It does enough to let you know, wink wink, that it's a bomb, but it's not a real bomb.
And then let's talk about how when Sinbad is going toward one of the many plastic balls in the store, and in the struggle he shouts Rodney King.
That I genuinely do not remember from my childhood, which makes sense because
exactly. Why
I wouldn't
would you?
know what...
I think that actually is a weird thing looking back on, because I think that's in a lot of films.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's actually said a lot of times by white people, which is so fucked up.
It's one of those things where if you watch anything from the 90s, you'll hear an OJ joke somewhere.
Right.
Which is not to say that even, obviously OJ kind of has somewhat more longevity as far as it spanned... shall we say, the crime itself into media sensation.
Oh, if you show Jingle All the Way to somebody who was like 15 right now, they'd have no idea who the fuck Rodney King
exactly,
was.
but they may have at least heard O.J. Simpson. You know,
even if they didn't. When I found out Rodney King died, that was pretty crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that scene where he's screaming Rodney King is one of those things where it's like, you know what's weird? It's like, I remember vague racism jokes, or race jokes, I should say, but I don't remember a black guy screaming Rodney King as he's being beat up, which is not something that would happen in a family film today. It's not like you're gonna have someone being choked and being like Eric Gardner, like that sounds horrible because it is. And yet, that's also technically how the Rodney King joke should have played back then, but just didn't.
No, it didn't, because really racism wasn't that big of a deal back then.
It's unfortunate, but it's definitely kind of true in the sense that...
it was a punchline.
Yes. So, So anyway, before I open it up,
Sure.
This is just a dumb movie that I have, even as an adult, a lot of fun with. And honestly, even... in the dramatic parts, it's actually kind of sweet. So this is like everything. This is the platonic ideal of what a child would want out of a family drama. And the idea that it actually gets that right is kind of weird, because so many movies that are aimed at children today talk down to them instead of trying to get at what they might hope for their, family, or for something like a holiday or whatever. So it's just refreshing to actually see even if it's fucking stupid at times.
Yes, it is.
To see a movie hinge on the idea of a father and son actually seeing eye to eye on a shared interest as something as stupid as a fucking Power Rangers knockoff.
Yeah, I mean, this film has a lot of interesting thoughts. One of them being that all white people work in a sweatshop that exists in downtown Minneapolis, which is kind of weird.
Well, that's just true.
And then also, too, anything involving the storyline with Phil Hartman is so fucking weird throughout this.
So Phil Hartman in this movie is amazing.
He is. Absolutely.
Yes,
I said this while we were watching it, but he is the only person who does not embarrass himself at any point during this movie, because he is so over the top that he's never not in control of what he's doing in any scene.
But here's why it works so well, because he's so self-aware that he knows exactly what he's doing. He's playing with it. Well, you have the opposite end of the spectrum. Arnold has no fucking clue what he's doing.
No.
And yet it's working out because he thinks he's giving a good performance, but actually he's giving a ridiculously bad performance. But it's okay because it still lands, even though he's trying.
Because he's playing a dad who's out of his element and behind the times. It works, but that's like a lucky coincidence.
Absolutely.
I agree with that too. That's like why I pretty much said it's like kind of watching him struggle to fit in. It's because he genuinely is trying to struggle, whereas Phil Hartman knows exactly what he's doing and who his character is.
Yeah.
These cookies.
What's weird is that I totally remember almost every Phil Hartman line from this film, like from the cookies line to, others to whatever. But one thing I vaguely forgot about just over time was the weirdly sinister aspect of his character. Like, I remember him being a creep, but I don't remember him like for example, not even like him being just an awful person in the car with the wife. Before that, I don't remember until we watched it, after Arnold Schwarzenegger's character pulled out of the driveway and he's still left with the reindeer, the way he just kind of like he drops his facade completely.
No, that happens too. He shows his ass in the scene when he tells her to go in the shower, which is really creepy.
Yeah.
And then he burns his fingers on and then the kids aren't even doing anything that bad. He just turns around and just screams, "Pipe down in there!"
And that's when I made the joke that he's definitely the kind of father who would throw an ashtray at his child. And I'm not wrong.
No.
But no, it's just really creepy, and yet Phil Hartman's just amazing.
Oh, he was, and just the way he delivers his lines throughout this film, he just got that, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, yeah, no, I can definitely come over and help you out with your problems there. Maybe I can stay afterwards then." Yeah. It's like, ugh.
So weird.
Also, too, this film goes out of its way to never comment on how all of the parents other than Arnold Schwarzenegger and his wife, played pretty well by Tom Hanks' wife,
Rita Wilson.
Rita Wilson.
I don't mean to pigeonhole her, but man, that is a 90s actress, so to speak.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Like, she is right there with, like, Joan Allen and a few others who were just...
I was going to say Minnie Driver, but...
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely
Andy
her.
McDowell, too.
Yes.
Meg Ryan.
Yeah, like, just that kind of, like, carousel of, like, oh, you know, we need whatever. And I'm saying, like, they're all, for the most part, great actresses or whatever, but it's just a weird time capsule. Unfortunately, men transcend the era, usually, that they're in. But anyway.
But pretty much everybody...
Nick looked right at me when he said that.
Well, I didn't want to be like, yeah, Alex?
Bros before... Oh.
I should have just looked at the empty chair. That is Toussaint.
That is Toussaint.
Yep.
He is morphed into an empty chair. It's like Clint Eastwood right here.
Nick's having his Clint Eastwood moment.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, wow.
I was adjusting the microphone stand.
I see that. Yes. Wow. If only we had a camera here so people could see what a disaster
Thank
this
God we
is.
don't.
It really is good. Yeah, there seems to be single parents around everywhere, and yet there's no commentating on are all of them divorced or all of them widowers. Like, it's this weird, like, everyone's just cool with the fact that one parent is gone from every single family except for the main one, which is really weird.
Pretty much.
Even
That is pretty bizarre.
Sinbad is clearly a single parent in some capacity, or at least he's the other single parent in some capacity.
Let's talk about the morality of Sinbad's character at some point.
Yes, Sinbad's we can do that right now if
Okay.
you want, because oh boy, how
Not
about
great.
that? How about that scene when they're in the famous diner in downtown Minneapolis? And he basically morphs into Jake Lloyd as he's wearing the oversized mailman outfit. And he just starts drinking the alcohol, saying, "This is your fault, Dad," or something like that. And it's just like, what?
I remember that scene fucked me up as a kid. Like, I forgot
I can
it.
imagine.
I forgot it existed, and then watching it today, I had like a PTSD flashback.
Oh, no.
To me learning that, like, you know, sometimes children don't grow up to be what they want to be. And I was just like, oh, no. But his character starts off like a buddy cop type, you know, whatever, as far as, like, he's an annoying sidekick. By the end of the movie, he is basically completely complicit and okay with possible child murder. And he's rewarded for that.
I feel like maybe we get a bit of foreshadowing into the fact that he's not a good guy, because in his introductory scene, he just starts, like, choking that woman.
That's
That is
up,
true,
too.
but that woman is
like-
surprisingly okay with that.
Oh.
Because the moment he removes his hand, she's just kind of like, did I do my acting?
The funny thing about that is that scene had no script. That was just Sinbad going off the cuff.
Yeah. They're like, oh, man, that's not going to be okay with the Actors Guild, but you know what? We're going to leave that in.
He's not a member, so
Yeah.
it's
Doesn't
fine.
matter. He was in Kazam, the fake genie movie.
Oh, my God. That's the one that's not on his Wikipedia page. I tried to look for it.
That's because that's not a real movie.
What if he took it out, huh? What do you mean it's not a real movie? I saw Disney. I see it on the Disney Channel. Oh my God, everything is terrible. I thought it was called Shazam.
No, that was Shaq in that, by the way. That's
Wait, are you
okay.
being
You're just
serious?
That's
right
what
now?
I was thinking of. I was
You're
thinking
being serious
I
right
was
now.
Yes, I was thinking of
Oh.
Shazam with Shaq.
Yeah, no. So
I am
there's,
so
there's,
sorry.
No, you're not. Don't be sorry because that's
racism.
no, but that's
What?
an actual Alex.
It's okay.
Alex.
That just happens to be another black person. It's
No,
okay.
but that is a real thing on the internet right now,
I'm sorry.
which is that people believe that there was a movie with Sinbad called Kazam. Like, separate, even people who remember the Shaq movie called, Shazam.
Yes.
No.
Shazam.
Shazam was the one with Sinbad. Well, the fake one was.
No, that's Kazam. I
Is
think.
I thought Kazam was. Oh boy,
We're having to look this up.
we're gonna
God
have
damn
to.
it.
Although I will say, Alex, by the way, we're probably gonna watch the Shaq movie at some point.
No, Kazam was real. It's the one that had Shaq in it.
Okay, that's Kazam. That's what I said, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Shazam is a fake movie that people think that they remember starring Sinbad in the same movie, basically, which never existed. It's kind of like how people think that the Bursting Bears are spelled with a B-E-A, but they're actually spelled with like Bernstein or something.
So it's a Mandela effect.
Yes, it's exactly like that.
Oh,
I think,
my God.
first of all, this is fantastic.
Yes.
Because I'm looking at the poster for Kazam.
Yes.
And first of all, it has Shaq coming out of the same stereo, pretty much, it looks like, from Do the Right Thing. Which is really weird.
No. Have you ever seen that movie, by the way?
Not the whole thing,
Kazam,
no.
I mean.
Yeah, no.
Not Do the Right Thing. We did an episode.
We did, yeah.
Oh, man, that's a movie I remember every scene from. I remember the scene where he feeds French toast to the kid. I remember the scene where he awkwardly...
Feeds French toast.
No, I guess a scene.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember the scene where he awkwardly showers in the kitchen.
That is
Shaq.
That is a problem.
It is a very big problem because he has a very big sponge that he uses. And yeah. We're going to watch that at some point.
Okay, so anyways, this is the tagline for Kazam. Also, too, everything about the poster is pretty normal except for the Kazam, which is basically written in graffiti, which is racist.
Oh, yeah.
So...
if I was a little kid, I would have just thought that was like the Space Jam logo.
Oh, absolutely. It was that same era and everything.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, you're right.
Yeah. I think it has to be, looking at it now.
Yeah.
But anyways, the tagline is, he's a rapping genie with an attitude. He's ready for slam dunk fun.
To be fair, he is. Like, that's not false.
I feel bad because we rip on all the community people who write the IMDb taglines now.
But really,
boy,
are they
they've actually improved
worse?
over the years.
Yeah. Anyway, Sinbad was not in a genie movie, even though a lot of people believe he was. And apparently it stems from the fact that he was one time on a channel, like a movie channel, where he was hosting interstitials between an actual movie marathon where he was dressed as a genie.
Oh, my God.
So, like, the memories of that was blending with the memories of whatever.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
My mind tricked me.
I know, buddy.
Speaking of the genie, who is excited for that Guy Ritchie Aladdin movie?
Fuck me. No, really.
That might be a bomb.
I'm less excited for Dumbo, that's for sure.
Less what?
Less excited for Dumbo. I don't think that's going to be good.
I'm more excited for that only because I fucking hate Guy Ritchie and Will Smith. So, like, the idea that there's a Disney movie coming out with those two...
Also, we have a definitive Aladdin. It exists.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
This is not necessary. Also, too, they decided instead of trying to go, like, with the previous Disney plan of hiring someone who is of note to play the villain, they just decided to find a random person who looks like a terrorist to play Jafar.
They were under pressure to actually... No, I'm dead serious. Like, that was actually a thing. Like, I don't really mind that. Yeah. The idea was that they were under pressure to get someone who was actually of that nationality because Disney is one to whitewash.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But
But they shouldn't do that?
No, they should. However, the fact that you're trying to find a scary-looking person who could be a bomber instead of finding someone who's actually a good performer in there is kind of a weird casting choice.
Like you might be reading your own... Like, what do you mean that he looked like a bomber? I haven't seen a picture, so I genuinely don't know.
Okay, that's fine. I'm probably being a terrible person here, which is okay.
I'm one every day, so it doesn't matter.
But... Yeah, no. I think the problem is I loved Aladdin when I was a kid, and I specifically loved Jafar. So
does that mean we're getting 3 of these in this year? We're getting the Lion King, Aladdin, and Dumbo?
Yes.
And all in, like, succession. All in, like, a 3-month
year?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's awful.
Yeah.
And there's a chance they're all going to suck.
And one of them might be good, but the fact that we're getting all 3 in 1 year is just a really bad sign.
I actually think there's a chance Dumbo can be good, but Tim Burton is such a wild card that I can't say for sure.
I am not looking forward to Dumbo at all, specifically because of Tim Burton. That's have a hard time lending him my attention for something aimed at children that isn't Nightmare Before Christmas, because I feel like that is kind of an...
That wasn't even his film.
I was going to say, that's not a Tim Burton film.
Everybody thinks it is, but he was just a producer.
This is a mindfuck day for Anna.
I was going to say, this is just like the Kazam
There's no
Shazam.
Shazam and Tim Burton.
I'll just go fuck
real?
myself. It's fine.
Okay, fine. No, it was directed by, I forget his name, but he also went on to do Leica animation stuff, like Coraline. But Tim Burton was a
So did the same guy do
producer.
Corpse Bride?
No, that was Tim Burton.
Bride. Tim Burton was involved
Here's the
heavily
thing.
in
Tim
Nightmare
Burton
Before
was
Christmas.
a producer, and he did the voice, right?
No, that was the...
That was Elfman, I think.
Danny Elfman.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I remember...
Because they hired someone to do the voice, and that didn't work out.
Yeah. No, but Tim Burton was a producer and certainly had his stamp all over it. But the guy who directed that went on to do Coraline, and I believe the guy who directed that also worked on Tim Burton's films before that movie, like Batman and such, as either as something...
I'm learning so much today. But anyway, I'm not looking forward to Dumbo.
Dumbo feels like it's a... somewhat handcuffed Tim Burton, which is usually the best kind. So we'll see. I don't know. Out of the three of those, I feel like that's the one that has the best chance to be good. Me and Nick talked about this a little bit last week. It seems like the more I think about it, and you were kind of just making me think even more like this, Nick, but that Lion King film looks like it could be a disaster.
I think it has the potential to be.
I think it has the potential to be, too. Unfortunately, however... I'm going to see it anyway.
Oh, no. I mean, we all are at this table.
We all are.
My biggest thing about that is just that the fact that, in my opinion, out of the 3 films coming out this year, that's the best original film, like, that these are all based on. Like, I think The Lion King is one of the masterpieces of Disney. Mm-hmm. And the trailer, even though it is a shot-by-shot remake of the original trailer, which they did for the Beauty and the Beast remake and whatnot. Like, I get that that's the theme of the trailer, but because this trailer doesn't show you the animals singing, makes me think that they are making sure you are not exposed to that as much as you possibly can be before you are already sitting down to watch what could be
fair.
a horrible sight.
And you know what? It may also be, too, something where when people go see it, they may actually really like it, but it may have an effect like Bohemian Rhapsody has had, where people went and saw it, and they're like, oh, we love that, nostalgia. And then they saw it again, they're like, that movie was shit.
And here's the thing. I can envision a world in which the Circle of Life scene is good in a live action, quote-unquote CGI, I guess, adaptation of The Lion King, because I don't think you can really fuck that up if you have good CGI. Like, that's made for... spectatorship. It's made to watch and to have sweeping camera movements. Everything after that scene, though, is going to be fucking awkward if it's even the least amount of just uncanny
how about
valley.
The scene with Whoopi Goldberg's character?
Yeah, the hyenas.
The hyenas. Yeah. And how about the Scar scene with the Be Prepared, where it gets super Nazi? Are we going to just get rid of that?
No, and that's the thing is,
we shall see.
The thing I was saying to Nick is that I feel like we have not reached a point where we have CGI talking animals without a human present to break up the weird...
They have to bounce off of something.
Yes, and now you're just going to have animals talking to animals that are not actually real, and it's going to be super fucked up.
The worst thing is that the cast that they have for this movie is actually decent. Like, these seem like the modern day...
Donald Glover, Beyonce, James Earl Jones is coming back.
Equivalent of what they used to do, but...
James Earl Jones.
Let's
not
that
could be bad,
do
but
that
he's also...
just yet,
but he's also barely in it, due to his character.
This is true. However, I'm still worried because, nerd showing here, when he comes back and does Darth Vader's voice in Rogue One, he clearly sounds like an old man trying to do Darth Vader's voice.
Yeah.
So now I'm very worried that it's going to be an old man. Simba, remember who you are.
Pretty much.
I'll take what I can get at this point from James Earl Jones.
Also, it'll be great if he just coughs in it, and they're like, we did 300 takes, and that was the best one.
No, I just think there's a very good chance that it's going to be awful, and I also think it might be okay, but I almost think I'd be more okay if they just did a straight remake and maybe just did, like, 3D animation. Just like updated it because that cast is actually okay, but I don't know that I need to see it in the actual fucking wild.
Like, I know what you need to see.
Yes.
You need to see Will Smith doing full Fresh Prince in Aladdin. Come on, Jeffrey.
First of all, that's
exactly what that's going to be.
No, but have you seen the guy who is a very funny person, who's a comedian, who has a very prolific Twitter account? Have you seen Demi Adiebe's Twitter account where he does these fake songs? And the first one I think that gained a lot of notoriety was when he jokingly leaked Disney Expo's first look at Will Smith as the genie, which was from like 2 years ago, where he had this fake rap song that he does that sounds like what Will Smith would do as the genie, and it's hilarious. Have you seen that?
I have to look that up.
Okay.
That was the one
when we finish this episode, we're going to watch
we have lots
that
of things to do.
Yeah,
and Santa's Sleigh.
So that is this... I want to make sure I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was fairly prominent on Vine, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's yes.
Yes, and then I believe one of his vines was Philippe's not your dad, and then he has like the
that sounds like something he
the
would
guitar.
do.
Yeah.
Right now, he's pretty famous for doing the September gag where he does the Earth, Wind, and Fire song. Body Say That You Remember, whatever the date is. I forget, the 4th or the
21st night of September,
something like that. But that day, like calendar,
is Vine still a thing?
No,
it's literally
it's just archive stuff now.
Yeah. Okay.
But he does a video where every year he does a bigger video than the last. Like the first one he did, it was just like him kind of dancing in front. But like by the latest,
the fact that Nick actually danced there was great.
But by the latest one, which is only like 3 videos later, he's like his ended with a full choir backing him up, where it was fucking hysterical. Anyway, he owns that Twitter, so continue.
He is very good at it.
He is.
Yeah, some people just have really good Twitter game.
They do.
I am not one of them.
Me neither.
So one thing I do want to talk about, pay that back a little harder, just a little bit, before we close out this episode, which has been all over the place, which is really fun. The ending scene of this film, I have always felt was absolutely fantastic, only because it involves a silly holiday parade with commentators, which is amazing because any commentators you have are just fantastic, and you have these people who are supposed to be, one of them is a weatherman whose name is Gale Force, which is great. Anyways, you have commentators, you have the family there, you have the finale of Arnold trying to find a Turbo Man, and he literally becomes Turbo Man, which is fantastic. And then, of course, you have Sinbad, who becomes whatever the Dementor.
I don't know.
Whatever the evil character is.
It's weird that they say nobody likes Booster, and yet literally Booster and Turbo Man are the 2 most memorable characters, whereas no one remembers the villain.
No.
Yeah. Booster was my personal favorite.
Oh, well, Booster gets called a homophobic slur.
That is true.
And it is undeniable that is what and it's by a child, too. It's by a child, too, which is true. Even worse.
Well, you're born with it.
Maybelline? What the fuck?
Yep. Now I'm just thinking, anytime I think of anything like homophobic, I just think of Thomas Middleditch in the movie Tag. Fucking homophobe. I'm sorry, but that was one of the best comedy scenes in the past year.
It was. Yeah, it's between, for me at least, it's between that and the scene when what's her face is trying to manually fix the bullet hole in Jason Bateman in Game Night. That was fantastic.
Yeah, Rachel McAdams.
So
that was great.
Just on YouTube trying to find out. Just like, oh man, so good.
Squeaky toy.
Yep, that was great. But rubbing back to the finale scene, everything about that is just so wonderful. And then the idea of him actually being Turbo Man and going through all of this to try to find the Turbo Man character, and also trying to be a better father, And then it turns out that those are kind of one and the same. Yeah. And it's such a silly, like, South Park kind of conclusion of, look, everything's fine. Yeah. But at the same time, it is pretty wonderful that this wraps up with him now being a better dad and at the same time finding Turbo Man.
Yeah.
And it's silly and kind of, simple, but at the same time, I just love it. I love the ending. And I love the way it ties in. It is something. And also, too, it is basically just ripping off the initial scene we see early on, and that's pretty fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much agree with everything Alex said. I did really enjoy this movie quite a bit, and the ending was just very, very good. And the fact that
Sonic the Hedgehog was there, too.
Sonic the Hedgehog was there.
You were excited about that.
I was so excited. I think I like all of the details in the parade, which is what made, the ending so good.
Big parade from Milwaukee. No, not
Minneapolis.
Minnesota. Not Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is funny. It is funny, too. It is kind of cool to see that 90s time where it was kind of like an eclectic group of all these different properties before they were known as properties, because you had things like Bert and Ernie, who are walking together holding hands, which I found was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then you have Sonic the Hedgehog, you have random Cabbage Patch Kids running through
yes.
there.
Paddington.
You have Paddington Bear.
Gumby was there.
Gumby. You had Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
You had
random crayons.
I was going to say Crayola crayons.
Yeah, Crayola crayons. Those were really cute.
And then you had people just dressed up as ornaments in boxes.
Yeah,
I do also like when Sinbad runs into them and pushes them over. Get out of the way, box!
What a great actor.
Yeah. That whole scene was really,
he wasn't
really
acting.
good.
Yeah.
That whole scene was just a whole bunch of fun. So
it was.
I really liked how everything came together. I liked how what we know now as an antagonist gets his comeuppance. And then, of course, we get the nice bow at the end when the cop congratulates Turbo Man on such a great job, and then he turns around to see that it is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that was a really good time. So I'm really glad that we watched this movie because I really liked it. So, yeah.
Do you want to? Did you have anything to say about the finale, or do you want to just give your rating? Because it seemed like that was a nice little wrap up there.
We'll start it up.
Yeah. I can give my final rating. So I would give this a 3 out of 5 stars.
Nice,
because I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I didn't hate it. So solid,
Yeah, right on.
Hell yeah. I was surprised that watching it so far removed from my childhood that it was still enjoyable and not in a laughable way. I mean, that obviously came up at a lot of parts and whatnot. But if my future possible child, not future as in I know my future, but if a child wanted to watch this with me, I would not be that disheartened. In fact, I would choose this over a lot of Christmas shit. Because at the end of the day, this gets from scene to scene in a very economic way to the point where, it starts and then the movie's over, and I think it's laughable in between and a lot of funny, ridiculous parts, and yet I also think it kind of works as a family melodrama, so I have to admit I'm kind of surprised because I'll give it a 3 out of 5 as well.
Nice.
And I think it sucks, and yet I can't really deny, because of the fact, for me personally, of when I saw it versus how I see it now. If I had never seen it, I don't know that I would be comfortable enough for me personally. I wouldn't get, but a lot of things come rushing back when I watch it now, and so it's definitely something that works, even though it shouldn't.
So here's something I will say before I get into my final rating.
Yes.
Somebody wrote and had to direct Arnold Schwarzenegger to dive after a bouncy ball that was continuously bouncing. It goes.
There were too many fucking balls on that ground for him to get that worried about not getting a ball.
So the ball bounces over the edge in the mall as he's sliding up against the door and hits his face against the window.
The ball bounces under the edge.
Right. But the fact that the ball bounces right down into a child who's in a stroller right by their private parts.
Yes.
And
Carol Burnett, by the way.
Yeah.
In a very young role.
Nice Carol Burnett second reference. There you go.
Yep.
Anyways, So Arnold Schwarzenegger, somebody was like, here's what you need to do, and this is the exact way you need to do it, where he's like, somebody stop that! That's my ball! I don't know why that accent was awful, but I'm sorry. Anyways, that was the line, and he delivered it. Put that cookie down! And he just, oh man, like that
You're
was...
my number one customer.
That was in the script, and it was great. And that, as I was mentioning before, that the pedophilia in that scene feels like, ugh.
Yeah, it's really gross.
Oh man! And yet he still is just running after that
with a nice red shiny ball.
That is so fucked up. When he tries to trade balls with the kid, he's like, "I've got the red ball for you," and it's like, "Oh god, damn it!"
Yeah, and then the parent-teacher council just start fucking wailing at him
with their
oversized purses
and the wrapping paper.
The wrapping paper. Don't forget about that. That's the other thing that's charming about this film is it uses all of the like Christmas-y type things you would see and just kind of has them around town. Yeah. Like the fact that he runs into a Santa Claus who happens to, instead of selling drugs, sells toys on the black market.
So I would love to know more about the purpose.
That's a movie in and of itself.
Exactly. I would love to know more about the purpose of John Belushi and those characters.
Jim Belushi.
Excuse me.
Please do not soil that name.
So sorry. I knew as soon as it came out of my mouth that I was probably saying the wrong name.
It's real easy to do that.
Yes.
So you're good.
So Jim and his fiends over there, other than serving as just a plot device for Arnold, I would really like to know what the heck was going on there.
Well, how about the fact that I was having a hard time with it because... like, from a visual level, this is just a bunch of people making shitty toys. So, unless there's drugs in all of these toys, why is there this huge bust happening?
Yeah, and they're making these toys, but they're also wrapping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why that bothered me, but...
It's something to... I feel like maybe in, like, the most simplistic way, if you don't really put too much thought into it, it's like, oh, it's just, you know, a shady volunteer organization. But why does a volunteer organization need to be shady? Like, why does Toys for Tots need to resort to this?
But what are they doing that is so illegal that it required a SWAT team? Again,
a SWAT team that is like, shall we say, easily dumbfounded by an FBI agent who just happens to be there, who says he's been investigating this case for 3 years.
They also for 3 years too.
Yeah.
When you have a little fucking when you have a pop-up Christmas knockoff.
Can we talk about really quick?
Yeah.
Can we just really quickly talk about that scene? Because there's a lot of Santas in that scene, and there's not a lot of variety.
Troyer,
yes, there's a
who goes flying across,
he sure does,
all the way, like shot out of a rocket
Jingle
ship.
All the Way, you might say. But can I just say, when Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to fight a Santa, not the Santa yet, but and then the other Santa, the wrestler that we were talking about
Big
earlier.
Show.
Yeah, Big Show. Shows up as a 6-year-old maybe when I first saw this, and then slightly older. His outfit is weirdly sexual. Like, I get that, like, fighting sometimes happens with, like, no shirt and whatever, but I feel like it's the straps, it's the suspenders that really uncomfortably turns that scene into something slightly more homoerotic than it was intending.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a step away from him walking in wearing, like, a satin teddy or something like that.
Like, if he had showed him with no shirt and just pants, I probably wouldn't, like, think anything weird. But because of those suspenders, those Santa North Pole suspenders.
Santa North Pole
suspenders. Santa North Pole candy cane. I'm just going to start naming more.
Christmas things?
Yeah, Christmas things. Suspenders. There's just something like, as a viewer, you're watching testosterone fight each other, and yet you're always conscious of the fact that you could just kind of snap one of those and, give him a boner. And it's just... it's just weirdly sensual in a way that I don't think I quite understood what was happening to my body when I was a child and watching that scene. Whoops. But as an adult, I'm very cognizant of the fact that that scene made me uncomfortable because I just don't know that children need to be subjected to Santa suspenders.
Okay. Seemed like you got a little caught up in your argument there.
It's a little nipply out.
Okay. I mean, actually looking at that scene and like the weirdness of it, on a broad view, it seemed like they had to try to find a reason to have Arnold fight somebody and show off his combat
But why wouldn't
skills.
he fight someone in a Santa suit?
I don't know, man.
Why
That's what I'm
does
saying.
he
This
have
film goes
to
out of its
have
way.
an oiled body casually have suspenders
Because
draped
you have to
over
eventually fight the boss in a level of a video game.
Yeah, but usually bosses wear like more clothing, like they have like garish outfits. It's not like you get to the end and it's like, whoa, why is he half naked? I guess I won't fight him now.
Yeah. It could have been worse. It could have been. It could have.
I mean, it could have been worse.
I was gonna say he could have turned around. It could have been Burt Reynolds from Striptease with butter all over him.
Look at that candy cane.
Oh, he died this year. That's a shame.
Oh my God.
I wonder what photo they're going to use for his memoriam. I hope they use the photo from Striptease. They won't.
Well, what did they do for Golden Globes?
Two things.
Did they do Smokey? They're always going to use Smokey.
I know. Didn't watch that part of it, so I don't know.
Two things. So, on like WGN, they did a very end of the year like wrap up of like an in memoriam, and the photo that they used of Burt Reynolds for that was the one where he's naked and lying on a fur rug. I thought that was really bizarre.
Oh yeah, his Playboy, or no, it was either Playboy or Penthouse, but yeah,
one of those. And I was like, this is an in memoriam. That's fun. That's
that was
weird,
kind
but
of a moment though for him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes,
continue.
and then two, there was one day shortly after Burt Reynolds passed, I was in a mood. And I saw this meme.
Where's this going?
I saw this meme that made me burst into tears. Oh. It was the poster of All Dogs Go to Heaven, and all of the actors...
All Burts go to heaven.
All of the actors have passed, and I saw that, and it just made me just bawl. Yeah, it was so upsetting because I loved that movie as a kid.
I watched that all the time.
You know, right? So.
Oh man, I mean, I didn't believe in it because I know dogs go to hell, but it was a comforting thought.
Shut the fuck up, Nick.
So, overall, for Jingle All the Way, I'm a big fan. I think this is a delightful movie, and even though I don't think this is like a masterpiece or anything in that neighborhood, I think this is a very solid 3.5 out of 5 film that I've always enjoyed and I've liked for different reasons as I've gotten older. And it is, I think, unintentionally what it ended up being. I'm almost positive that the filmmakers, when this came out in the mid-90s, were probably not like, people are going to look back on this and be like, oh, look at that nice little time capsule. But yet I still feel like that's exactly what this is, and I pretty much love it.
Yeah.
So, if anybody out there has any thoughts on Jingle All the Way, always feel free to send them on to us at filmtankshow@gmail.com. I will not fuck this up. I will say thank you first to Anna Bodazadu for joining us again.
Of course, thank you for having me.
We're looking forward to hopefully seeing you in a couple weeks as after we do our yearly review top 6 episode, where we were talking about getting together to do an episode on Mary Poppins Returns. So that'll be cool if we're able to get together again and do an episode on that. So we're looking forward to having you back again, and hopefully we'll be able to make that episode happen.
Awesome.
Cool.
Can't wait.
So from Anna and Nick and myself, Alex, thank you very much for catching up with us here on Film Tank. We'll catch up with you next time.